They were both wrong, and the truth was worse. People always want someone to blame. One villain, one victim, one clean explanation that makes everything easier to understand. But real life rarely works like that. Sometimes, both people are guilty, and sometimes the truth hiding underneath everything is far uglier than betrayal itself. When people heard our story, they immediately chose sides. Some blamed her, others blamed me. Friends created theories, families took positions, everyone wanted to decide who destroyed the relationship, but nobody understood what was actually happening behind closed doors, not even us. Her name was Clara, and when I met her, it felt like destiny in the kind of way people romanticize when they're young. We connected fast, too fast. The kind of connection that feels exciting because it skips all the safe steps. Late-night conversations turned into emotional dependency almost immediately. And honestly, that should have been the first warning sign. Because relationships built on emotional intensity usually collapse under emotional reality. But back then, we confused obsession with love, and that mistake ruined both of us. At first, everything between us felt perfect. Or at least, perfect enough to ignore the cracks forming underneath. She made me feel important, seen, needed. And I gave her the same thing in return. That's the dangerous part about toxic relationships. They often feel incredible in the beginning, not because they're healthy, but because two emotionally damaged people temporarily become each other's escape. Clara had wounds she never talked about, fear of abandonment, fear of being ignored, fear of not being enough. And I had my own problems, control, ego, emotional distance disguised as independence. Neither of us understood ourselves well enough to love someone else properly. But instead of healing separately, we attached ourselves to each other like drowning people. And drowning people don't save each other. They pull each other under. The relationship slowly became a cycle of extremes. Extreme affection, extreme jealousy, extreme apologies, extreme silence. Some nights we talked for hours about marriage, the future, building a life together. Other nights, we blocked each other over arguments neither of us even remembered the next morning. It became emotionally exhausting. But somehow, we stayed addicted to the chaos because peace started feeling unfamiliar. And unhealthy people often mistake emotional instability for passion. Over time, we stopped communicating honestly. Instead, we started competing emotionally, trying to hurt each other before getting hurt first, keeping score, testing loyalty, creating distance just to see who would chase harder, and little by little, love disappeared. What remained was emotional warfare. I remember one specific night that changed everything. We were sitting in complete silence after another meaningless argument. Neither of us even remembered how it started, but the room felt heavy, exhausted, broken, and suddenly Clara looked at me and asked, "Do you even like who we've become?" I didn't answer, because deep down, I already knew the truth. I didn't, and judging by the tears in her eyes, neither did she. But ending toxic relationships is rarely simple, because by that point, the pain becomes familiar, predictable, and strangely comforting. You start believing suffering is proof the relationship still matters, so instead of leaving, we kept trying to fix something that was already emotionally collapsing, and every attempt only made things worse. Eventually, the betrayal happened. At least that's what everyone called it. People heard fragments of the story, messages, rumors, half-truths passed between mutual friends, and overnight, our private collapse became public entertainment. Some people said she cheated. Others believed I did first. The truth? By that point, betrayal had already existed between us for months, long before anyone touched another person. Because betrayal doesn't always begin physically. Sometimes it begins emotionally, in resentment, in manipulation, in emotional neglect, in slowly becoming cruel towards someone you once promised to protect. That's the part nobody talks about. Relationships rarely die in one dramatic moment. They die slowly, quietly, through repeated emotional damage that nobody fully notices until it's too late. And by the time our relationship officially ended, there was almost nothing left worth saving anyway. After the breakup, everything became ugly. Friends divided, people spread stories, everyone wanted details, everyone wanted someone to hate. And honestly, for a while, I hated her too, not because she destroyed me, but because blaming her felt easier than confronting my own role in the destruction. And I think she felt the same about me. Months passed, then years, and eventually, distance does something strange to painful memories. It removes the emotional noise, it forces clarity, and slowly, I started seeing the relationship differently. Not as a story about betrayal, not as a story about innocence, but as a story about two emotionally broken people trying to build love before learning how to build themselves. That realization changed everything, because for the first time, I stopped viewing myself as the victim, and I stopped viewing Clara as the villain. We were both responsible, in different ways, at different moments, and admitting that felt strangely freeing. Painful, but freeing. Years later, I saw her again by accident, and honestly, she looked peaceful. Not happy in an exaggerated way, just lighter, like someone who survived a storm and finally found silence afterward. We spoke briefly. No anger, no blame, just two people quietly acknowledging a version of themselves that no longer existed. And before leaving, she smiled sadly and said something I still think about sometimes. We loved each other at the wrong time. At first, I thought that was the tragedy, but eventually, I realized the truth was worse. It wasn't the timing, it was who we were back then. Two people searching for healing inside each other, while secretly bleeding everywhere they touched. People still ask who ruined the relationship, who betrayed who first, who caused more damage. But honestly, that question stopped mattering a long time ago. Because sometimes, there isn't one villain. Sometimes the real tragedy is watching two damaged people slowly destroy each other, while calling it love.